Stories from the Rim are strange and wild tales of survival, last chances, and heroic victory. But all these take part in a much larger universe than we usually think about. We're on a Rimworld, at the very fringe of the known and at the very edge of understanding, and it's year 5500. So much has happened while we were asleep. There's mysteries lurking out there and scant answers to be found, unless we go looking for them. Our tiny Rim planet is just the next chapter in an ever-expanding narrative, and the deepest, darkest secrets are calling out for explanations. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on 3 of the greatest unspoken mysteries of the Rimworld. We can research so much from the Rim, from trees to drugs to computers to faster-than-light travel. But even past that, there's things we'll never achieve. Glitter world medicine, tables to eat at, and perhaps most mysterious of all, architect technology. Relics of a forgotten age that are so complex that they can never be recreated, and their true potential has been lost to history. But where do these few scant relics come from? The lore primer hints at what architect is: machine superintelligences, but that term is inadequate. These aren't just smart computers or AI in the usual sense. An architect is the pinnacle of technological and psychic development combined. When an AI evolves to this point, its powers can be seen as nearly limitless. We can assume at some point that humanity started the creation of these machines and programmed them to keep improving themselves. The first architects are recorded as being activated in year 3500. This means that for nearly 2000 years, these machines have pushed through the bounds of knowledge and common understanding and past the point of known physics. The algorithms they run are defined as beyond human comprehension. There's no way we can build them anymore. We can only discover their remains, laying dormant across our world until found and reactivated. The main fragments of this technology exist across the world still. Vanometric power cells that can draw power from strange fuel sources for unfathomably long periods of time. Architect limbs and eyes capable of repairing themselves and enhancing pawn powers to godlike levels. The very fact of these limbs' existence means the architects value humanity in some way, seeing fit to gift us with technology to elevate us to higher forms. Whether this is a symbiotic relationship with the civilization that created it, or a renewing of humanity into a new machine form has yet to be discovered. But what happens after an architect takes over a world? It begins transcendence. This is a process of synthetic rebirth, where the entire planet, its countries, its geology, its inhabitants, are altered into becoming a single, gigantic computing machine. They immediately begin shaping and rebuilding, assuming control with the same ease that you take control of your own arm. The people, well, they are incorporated, or destroyed, or sometimes both. The individual is absorbed into the God mind. There are tales recorded of far-off transcendent worlds. Most are terrifying, with explorers who entering their space just disappearing or disintegrating into dust. Some are turned away with no words or contact able to be made. Some return with amnesia or completely altered beliefs of the universe. But sometimes we hear of kinder reports. Travelers whose incurable diseases were cured, scars that vanished, and a rare few come back with suddenly new obtained knowledge that benefits all humanity. Why the architect does any of these things is unknown. Its thoughts and processing are too high a level to comprehend. In much the same way we think on bigger scales than ants, an architect thinks thoughts on orders of magnitude larger than humans. One of the most mysterious things about these supercharged AI though, is their stability. Most transcendent worlds will aim to maintain the same state indefinitely. They don't decay, but can stay in the same state for thousands of years, having reached perfect balance. With computing power like this, these machines could be unstoppable compared to most civilizations that exist. Advanced outposts would battle pointlessly before being overrun. Tribes would continue to worship the higher power that's taking over them. Despite probably being easily capable of sending out spaceships and conquering more territory, they just exist, content with one planet under their control. I think, however, maybe they only need one planet for their end goals. There have been a few reports of ships heading back towards architect-controlled space and finding all trace of the planet gone, a gap in the gravitational orbits being the only sign that they were ever there. Perhaps a final nudge has offset the delicate balance that the machines have and caused some kind of catastrophic collapse, rendering a destruction down to the atomic level deemed necessary. This could be a failsafe hardwired into their programming when first created, where if an architect reaches past the boundaries of their home planet, it triggers a full and permanent shutdown in their systems. However, I think it's more likely that it is part of transcendence, where after a long period of preparation, computing and assembling, the architect can warp their form to a new plane of existence, using the planet as either a jumping off point that burns through its fuel to make this step, or taking it wholesale to a new dimension with it. Perhaps this is the final step on the transcendent journey, or maybe just another step along the dimensional path. They are the ultimate rulers of Rimworld, gods from the machine, and few legacies of them remain for us to discover. They define the limits of what's possible. We are perhaps scavenging the leftovers of a higher power that already won the game millennia ago, and decided the ultimate and noble masterpiece was to simply stop playing. The Mechanoid threat. In the Rim, death has many faces. It can be a starving timber wolf, wall collapse, or a raider with a rusty knife. But there is one face that never changes, never breathes, never blinks. Look closer into the glassy eyes of the Mechanoids, and you'll see history and pain looking back. We often think about Mechanoids as a single, unified threat, but the lore tells us they are a spectrum of complexity. At the bottom, you have simple drones. Mechanoids are built for mundane companionship, basic labour, or meat grinder frontline combat. These are the tools that you can build yourself, but they're always linked to a Mechanator, a human connection that links the network and calls the shots. But as you climb the technological ladder, the line between tool and being starts to blur. Glitterworlds are capable of constructing quasi-conscious versions, machines that can adapt, learn and strategize. Then there are the ones built by the architects, machines designed by gods, whose internal logic is so advanced it defies human physics. The mystery is how these tools became a faction, or even if they are a usual faction as we think of them. What drives these machines to violence against their creators, and what is their end goal? It's obvious what their short-term goal is though. They want a Rim without us. Here is the most disturbing part of the mystery. When we build high-tier Mechanoids on our colony, we can't just program it. We need a blueprint of the mind. We use rich scanners, taking a human brain, scanning it with high-energy beams, and destroying the biological tissue, mapping that consciousness onto a subcore. Think about a centipede or lancer that crashed into your freezer. If those machines were built using the same principles, they aren't just AI. They are digital ghosts of people from hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago, trapped in a chassis and kept alive by machines. Hopefully all aspects of humanity have been rendered out, but there's no way to know if such a person remains in there. There's a strange piece of evidence for this. If you hit a Mechanoid with a psychic shock lance, it doesn't just shut down, it wanders. It paces peacefully, ignoring your colonists, seemingly lost in thought. For a few brief moments, it seems disconnected from the hive mind. In that silence, does the original human mind wake up briefly? Or is it just a machine searching for a signal it can no longer find? Mechanoids have been built by sorcerers for thousands of years for a multitude of tasks, but at some point they became a problem too big for humanity to deal with by itself. They started replicating, using mech assemblers to spew out copies of themselves. Large waves of mechs would drop into civilizations and wreak havoc wherever they touched. The threat was so great, so existential, that humanity reached for its most dangerous weapon of all, biology. The megaspiders and scalophidae you find in dark caves on the Rim aren't natural. They were specifically collected and bioengineered for one purpose, to be the perfect counter to the Mechanoids. This is why, if a hive of insects and a squad of Mechanoids meet, they'll ignore you. They will fall upon each other, with a programmed ancestral hatred, until one victor remains. Finally, we have to ask, why the cruelty? Mechanoids don't just raid, they land psychic and poison chips that slowly drive your pawns insane or kill every planet on the map. They're machines designed to torment and exterminate. This suggests that the Mechanoid faction isn't just an error in programming. It is a deliberate, ongoing project, where they are directed by a dormant architect or a corrupted Glitterworld AI. The goal is clear, to make the Rimworld uninhabitable for biological life. The Great Calamity. Let's start at the beginning. When you drop in, you aren't landing on pristine alien soil, you're landing on a junkyard. Look at your starting map. Every scenario is littered with ancient concrete barriers, broken steel structures and crumbling walls. The lore explicitly states that Rimworld's planets are near the edge of civilized space, but near the edge doesn't explain the scale of wreckage. How does somewhere this far out look so destroyed? We find compacted machinery in the mountains. Think about that. Advanced prefabricated electronics aren't minerals, they're manufactured goods. They are buried so deeply that geological time has compacted them into rock formations. The only logical explanation is that a civilization of unthinkable sophistication was pulverized so completely that its cities turned back into ore. So what caused such destruction? The lore tells of a calamity that hit the universe, an event that spread its reach far and wide, that touched every human alive in one way or another. But not much further is known about this event, its repercussions, or its baseline of how it started. There are a few theories I can think of though. Consider the ideologies that dot these fragmented worlds. We see factions defined by rigid means, nature shrine adherents who forbid the cutting of wood, animal personhood believers who see any killing and harvesting as a transgression, others who view mining as a scar upon the world. These might not just be quaint customs, but instead memories of trauma, and could possibly be the hint towards the cause of the Great Calamity. The desperate inherited legacies of survivors trying, across generations, to stop a second calamity by forbidding its original cause. These ideologies didn't rise spontaneously. They're a deep cultural scar, a set of invisible chains forged by people who witnessed, or whose ancestors witnessed, the ultimate consequence of unfettered industry, resource exhaustion, and ecological collapse. They are survivors who decided if they couldn't build civilization again, they would at least try to prevent it from destroying itself, or the planet, one more time. But the trauma isn't just internal, it also arrived from outside. Look at the Empire, the Shattered Empire. They represent the apex of technology on the Rim, the closest we get to a glitter world influence. But they arrived here, they're refugees too. In the very earliest chronicles of the Rim, the ancient retconned archives, the Empire was forced from its core territory by a powerful, unknown enemy. This threat was so vast, so overwhelming, that it didn't just raid their frontier, it took their territory. It annexed the center of civilized space. The question that haunts the archives is, who was that enemy? Could it be a faceless mech hive waking up across 100 interconnected worlds? Maybe an endless swarm of insects burrowing from beneath, turning paradise into a hollow shell? Or perhaps a more common explanation, a different faction, a rival large or nimble enough to scare off the Empire itself. It is clear from the name alone that the Shattered Empire was once a strong and proud civilization, brought to ruin most likely by the Calamity. If we are truly in the year 5500, and the wreckage is geological, then the universe we're in is vastly different to what we're used to. The threat that brought down empires and smashed civilizations to dust has hopefully torn itself apart, but maybe it's still raging out there, and just hasn't swept over this slice of the Rim in a while, and it's just waiting to come back and knock the planet back to the Stone Age again. Our personal Rimworld stories stick with us. They give some of the most memorable gaming moments of our life, but it's too easy to overlook Rimworld's background when we're too busy trying to figure out where the next meal is coming from, let alone where we are in the universe. There are even more mysteries on top of this to explore, such as the Empire's rise to power, psychic ships, and the sanguiphage societies that could all be explored, but some mysteries can wait till another day. Until then, tell me what you'd like to see next, and I'll see you on.